Discipline is the only doorway to freedom, yet it is also the doorway most people refuse to walk through. This bitter truth explains why the majority remain stuck at mediocrity while the minority rise to greatness. Because discipline is not a pleasant gift, it is the bitter medicine that only those brave enough to swallow will gain long-term health from. You may avoid hearing this truth, but you cannot escape the consequences of ignoring it. Success is not built on fleeting bursts of excitement. It does not arise from bright sunny days when you are overflowing with motivation. Success is forged in cold mornings when your body begs for more sleep, in tense moments when the most reasonable excuses appear to justify delay. Discipline is the ability to force yourself into action in those exact moments. This is the dividing line. The disciplined move forward, the undisciplined remain stuck. What causes most people to fail is not a lack of knowledge or a lack of opportunity. Today, information is abundant, and opportunities are everywhere. The problem is this. When opportunity knocks, they lack the discipline to get up and open the door. They wait to feel ready, wait to be more motivated, wait for the perfect time. But the truth is that feeling never comes. If you live by waiting, you are signing a lifetime contract with failure. The lesson you must carve into your mind is this. Motivation is merely an emotion, while discipline is a decision. Motivation comes and goes with moods, with weather, with circumstances. Discipline, on the other hand, is the true measure of character. A person who lives by motivation works when inspired, quits when tired. A person who lives by discipline works regardless of feeling. That is why Napoleon Hill once said, "The man who masters himself holds greater power than he who conquers a city." Every morning when you wake up, two voices call you. One of comfort pulling you back to bed, and one of discipline urging you to rise. The voice you answer shapes who you are that day and accumulates into who you become for life. There is no neutral choice. The side you choose today becomes easier to repeat tomorrow. The danger is that laziness never arrives as a fierce enemy. It comes as a gentle friend whispering, "Just rest a little. There's still plenty of time." It disguises itself as harmless activities, scrolling your phone, pointless conversations, staying busy with unimportant tasks. You think you are fine, but in truth, your hours, your days, your years are being stolen. By the time you realize it, the cost is too high, opportunities lost, potential wasted. This is the truth no one wants to hear. Discipline is not a comfortable feeling, but a painful decision in the moment. You cannot vaguely hope it shows up. You must force yourself to choose it. Each time you resist the call of comfort, you carve a deeper groove in your brain, the groove of discipline. Each time you give in, you carve another, the groove of weakness. The path you walk more often eventually becomes the highway you live on. Discipline never appears in easy times. It is born at the intersection of hardship and choice. When work piles up, when your body is exhausted, when your mind conjures every excuse, that is when discipline truly reveals itself. Ordinary people surrender. Successful people push forward. Which group you belong to depends on your decision. The frightening thing is not missing one day of training, one day of study, one day of work. The frightening thing is training your mind to believe that quitting is acceptable. Once you allow it once, it becomes easier the next time. Weakness accumulates bit by bit until you find yourself enslaved by it. Conversely, each time you choose action, you train yourself to believe, "I am someone I can rely on." That is the most precious belief you can build. No one else can do this for you. No one else will bear the consequences of the compromises you make with laziness. Only you will pay the price with lost health, missed opportunities, eroded self-respect. And only you can reverse the balance by choosing discipline in the hardest moment. At its core, discipline is not punishment, but self-respect. When you force yourself to do the hard thing today, you are sending a message to yourself, "My future deserves to be served. I am worthy of the sacrifice now." That is not harshness. It is reverence for the value of your life. People often admire great figures and assume they possessed special talent, lucky opportunities, or superior resources. The truth is simpler. They simply refuse to let laziness take control. They declined thousands of tempting invitations to choose the path of discipline, and it was those quiet, repeated decisions that built the fortress of their success. So remember, discipline is not a luxury you apply when convenient. It is the foundation you must have if you want to build anything that lasts. Every second you compromise with laziness is a second you sell your future cheap. Every second you choose discipline is a second you invest in freedom, in strength, in success. The truth is not easy to hear, but you must. Success does not belong to those waiting for inspiration. It belongs to those who force themselves to act when no inspiration remains. And right now, the choice is in your hands. Never place your life in the hands of emotions. Emotions come and go, they change with the weather, with your sleep, even with a passing remark from someone. If you let emotions decide your actions, you will live like a leaf drifting along the river, at times enthusiastic, at times drained, never truly holding control over your destiny. Success never belongs to those who wait for inspiration. It belongs to those who know that action is the true fire that generates motivation. Look back at your life. How many times have you said, "I'll start when I feel ready. I'll do it when I'm in the mood," and in the end, nothing happened? How many opportunities slipped away simply because you waited for the right feeling, only to one day realize you were still standing in the exact same place? The truth is, you don't lack ability. You don't lack opportunity. What you lack is a decisive choice independent of emotions. Motivation doesn't fall from the sky. It is born the moment you begin to act, and the more you act, the stronger your motivation grows. Discipline means doing what needs to be done, regardless of how you feel. Successful people know this well. They write when uninspired, they train when their bodies feel heavy, they study when their minds want to give up. And precisely in those moments of not wanting, they forge resilience, strength, and confidence others will never possess. Don't deceive yourself into thinking you need emotions first in order to act. Emotions are followers. Action is the leader. Imagine a machine weighing tons. At first, it is hard to start, requiring enormous effort to get the first wheel to turn. But once it moves, momentum takes over, making it easier and easier. Your body and mind work the same way. Action is the initial push. Motivation is the momentum that follows. If you wait for motivation before acting, you'll be waiting for eternity. But if you dare to act even when you feel no interest, you will see motivation rushing in with each small step. That is the secret of those who sustain success over the long term. I want to pause and ask you one simple question, a question that will reveal everything. How many times in the past week have you delayed something important just because you didn't feel like it? Be honest with yourself. That answer will tell you exactly why you haven't gone further. And if you feel that inner urge that it's time to change, that you don't want to keep repeating the old script, I invite you to prove it right now. Leave a comment below with the words, "I'm ready," or even just the number 1. That is the sign you've dared to declare your desire for change, starting here, starting now. That is also how I know I'm not speaking into the void, that your presence is real, and for someone creating content like me that is priceless, something I deeply value and am grateful for. Remember, every major decision in life begins with a small action. A keystroke, a step out of bed, a page turned in a book. Action is how you declare to yourself that you are ready to take ownership of your life. No one else can do it for you. And if even a small comment makes you hesitate, how can you expect yourself to cross bigger challenges? This is not about writing a word or a number. It is about affirming your identity. You choose who you are, someone who acts or someone who waits. The difference between these two kinds of people is so great it determines entire destinies. Those who wait for feelings live in an endless cycle. They start strong when motivated, quit when feelings fade, then look for reasons to start again, only to stop once more. The end result, they get nowhere. Those who act regardless of emotions follow a straight, steady path. Step by step, day by day, month by month, they accumulate strength. At first, the difference seems small, but over years it becomes a chasm impossible to cross. Do you want to remain forever on the other side of that gap, watching others achieve what you dream of and wondering why it's not you? Or do you want to step across to the side where only a minority dare to live with discipline, acting without waiting for emotions? That decision only you can make. And it begins at this very moment. Act instead of delay. Do not trust the sweet promises of emotions. They will tell you, wait a little longer, start when you feel inspired, do it when conditions are right. Don't listen. Each time you do, you lose a piece of your future. Each time you refuse, you take back a piece of your strength. Choose action even when your mind hesitates. Choose to rise even when your body longs to stay still. That choice is your true measure. And if you are truly determined, Leave a small but powerful sign. I'm ready, or simply the number one. I promise you, this small action will become the first step of a greater chain of actions. You will see that once you dare to do something simple immediately, you will gradually dare to take on harder things. Action creates motivation. Motivation leads to discipline, and discipline brings success. I know your presence here is not by chance. You are here because a part of you desires change. A part of you refuses to accept a stagnant life. And I want to see the sign of that desire. So I know I am walking alongside people who truly want to break through. So I have more reason to keep giving, to keep saying the things many are afraid to hear, but you are brave enough to face. That is worth more than any thank you, because it proves these words are not falling into emptiness, but are touching your heart and your will. Remember, no one changes your life but you, and you don't need to wait for a special day, a perfect moment to do it. That special day is today. That moment is now. Act immediately, even if it's just one small step, one affirmation, one comment for that is the beginning of the revolution in your life. And once you begin, you won't stop, because you've discovered the secret successful people always know: action creates motivation, not the other way around. Laziness never leaves on its own. It is a stubborn guest, finding every way to remain in the house of your mind. It is not loud, it does not openly threaten, but appears in a friendly, pleasant form, making you believe it is harmless. In truth, laziness is the most cunning thief. It does not rob you all at once, but gnaws away at each opportunity, each moment, each dream, until by the time you awaken, nothing is left. If you want to live with discipline, you cannot pretend not to see it, cannot hide or avoid it. You must confront it head on, stare straight at it as you would stare at the enemy of your future. Laziness often begins in the smallest moments. It is the morning when the alarm rings and you turn it off, telling yourself just 5 more minutes. It is when you have important work to do but allow yourself to check your phone just for a few minutes and then get lost in the screen for hours. It is when you sit at your desk but instead of beginning, you rearrange everything, tidy papers, do meaningless busy work. These small things are the masks of laziness. It never declares, "I want you to fail." It only whispers, "A short break won't hurt." And in those whispers, your destiny is being decided. The most dangerous thing is not the days you completely give up. The most dangerous thing is when you don't even realize you are being lazy. You mistake activity for progress, believing that busyness can substitute for discipline, but meaningless busyness is just another form of delay. You may fill an entire day with trivial tasks, yet when night comes, you know deep down you haven't accomplished anything important. That deception is laziness's favorite game. It gives you a sense of safety while silently eroding your true capacity. To win, you must first admit this: laziness is not a fixed part of your character. It is an opponent you can and must fight. When you confront it, you begin to recognize how it operates. It tempts with comfort, persuades with reasonable excuses, disguises itself as harmless choices. And if you are not alert enough, you sign hidden contracts with it every day, slowly losing yourself. Confronting laziness head-on means no negotiation. You do not say, "I'll do it in 10 minutes," because those 10 minutes will stretch into an hour, a day, a week. You do not say, "I'll do it when I feel like it," because desire only comes after you begin, never before. Confrontation means looking it in the eye and saying firmly, "Number." Each time you succeed in doing this, you place another brick of discipline, and over time those bricks build a wall that shields you from the silent destruction of bad habits. Remember, laziness never grows weaker. It is always there, waiting for you to slip. That is why you must learn to recognize it the moment it appears. When the alarm rings and you hear, "Sleep a little longer," that is laziness. When you prepare to exercise and it says, "Tomorrow will be fine," that is laziness. When you open a book and it urges, "Check social media for a few minutes first," that is laziness. Confronting it head-on means calling it by its name immediately, not allowing it to disguise itself as something else. Once you know the face of the enemy, you have already won half the battle. Many people think defeating laziness requires doing extraordinary things right away, but the secret lies in small, consistent victories. Each time you refuse one whisper, you break a link in the chain. Each time you act immediately instead of postponing, you train your mental muscle, and that muscle grows stronger until one day you realize laziness no longer controls you as it once did. Yet to reach that point, you must endure the initial discomfort. Confronting laziness always creates resistance in your body. You will feel heavy, restless, as though you are forcing yourself. But that is the signal you are heading in the right direction. If everything feels easy, it means you are still in the comfort zone, the zone laziness has built to imprison you. Only when you step beyond that discomfort do you truly reclaim control. Confronting laziness does not mean eliminating it entirely, because it will always return. Your goal is not to erase it, but to weaken it until it has no weight in your decisions. You do this by consistently choosing action again and again until laziness becomes just a voice you've learned to ignore. It will still be there, but you will no longer obey. And that is the sign of disciplined maturity. The most important thing to remember is this: if you do not confront laziness directly, you will become its hostage. Every opportunity, every dream will be bargained away and lost. Each day you accept delay, you are silently signing away your future to the enemy. But each time you win, you reclaim a piece of territory. Over time, you build a land of freedom where discipline rules and laziness is nothing but an outcast. This is a silent battle, seen by no one but you. No one witnesses the moment you turn off the alarm and rise, just as no one knows when you choose to open a book instead of your phone. Yet those invisible moments create the visible results in your life. Others will only see your success. They will never know how many times you faced laziness and refused it. But you know, and that is the most valuable victory. Discipline begins with honesty. Honesty that laziness exists. Honesty that you cannot defeat it with empty promises. Honesty that only immediate action can save you from its spiral. Once you accept this truth, you have already taken a great step forward. You are no longer laziness's victim. You have become its rival. And in that confrontation, there is only one rule: never negotiate. Laziness never comes knocking with noise. It arrives quietly, like a sweet whisper in your mind. Just rest a little longer, it's fine. You're tired today, you can do it tomorrow. Life is not just about work. At first, it seems no different from a kind friend who wants you to feel more comfortable. But in reality, it is a thief of time, a stealer of potential, and one of the very reasons why millions remain stuck in place while life flows relentlessly forward. One of the greatest mistakes people make is sitting down to negotiate with laziness. They try to persuade themselves, just do half and then stop, or skipping today won't kill anyone. But the truth is, the moment you open the table for negotiation, you have already lost. Laziness is like a cunning lawyer. The more you engage, the more you get drawn into its reasoning, until in the end you sign a verdict against yourself. Look at the decisive moments in your life. Not the grand events, but the mornings when the alarm rings and you are still under the warm blanket. The decision to stay another 15 minutes or to get up immediately, that small choice shapes your destiny. When you allow laziness to win once, it will have justification to win a second time, then a third. By the time you realize it, it has built a fortress in your mind. Never negotiating with laziness means cutting off every internal dialogue. Do not allow your brain the chance to ask, "Should I?" Instead of letting instinct take over, use intellect to establish principles. The alarm rings, you get up. The work needs to be done, you begin immediately. No emotions, no excuses, no space for weakness to slip in. Neuroscience shows that every time you procrastinate, your brain records it as part of your behavioral pattern. You are, in effect, teaching yourself how to betray discipline. Conversely, when you act even when you don't feel like it, your brain learns, here, feelings don't decide actions, principles do. The more you repeat this, the stronger that neural pathway becomes, and gradually you build a version of yourself rooted in unshakable discipline. To achieve this, you need the strongest weapon, decisiveness. Laziness only survives when you hesitate. If you are absolute enough not to give it any opening, it will retreat. Imagine yourself as a gatekeeper. Laziness knocks, but you do not open, you don't explain, you don't negotiate. You simply turn away and continue your work. One of the biggest lessons I have learned is this: you cannot defeat laziness with inspiration, because inspiration comes and goes. You cannot defeat it with bursts of motivation, because motivation is like fire. It burns brightly but quickly fades. Only intellect and principles can keep you steady on the long road. Think about it. How many times have you procrastinated only to regret it later? Regret for the wasted time, for letting opportunities slip, for watching others move ahead of you. And that regret is far more painful than the discomfort of stepping out of your comfort zone to do the work immediately. Never negotiating with laziness means recognizing the true cost it extracts. It doesn't just take away a morning, an hour, or a small chance. It takes away your very identity, because each time you accept laziness, you are defining yourself as someone untrustworthy, someone who quits, someone weak. On the other hand, when you cut off every negotiation, you redefine yourself as someone resolute, someone disciplined, someone in control. And that is the true value, because all external success begins with internal identity. Remember, no one is defeated more by outside enemies than by losing the small battles within. Each morning you defeat laziness, you are training an invisible muscle, the muscle of willpower. And that muscle will lift your entire life above mediocrity. So instead of sitting there listening to laziness persuade you, you must silence it the moment it arises. Don't let it speak. Don't let it convene a meeting. Because once the meeting begins, you have already lost ground. Live by this law. I do not negotiate with the enemy within. You may see this as harsh, but it is precisely this harshness that sets you free. Because once you no longer allow laziness to decide for you, only then are you truly free. Freedom is not doing whatever you like, it is having the strength to do what you must, even when you don't like it. And from today, every time laziness whispers in your mind, smile and answer with action. Let intellect speak instead of feelings. When you do, you will discover a truth. Every great enemy in life can be subdued as long as you never sit down to negotiate with it. Laziness rarely shows up in a crude and obvious way. It doesn't come knocking on your door saying, "Don't do anything today." On the contrary, it is subtle, clever, and often dresses itself in very reasonable outfits. That is why many people believe they are resting, preparing, or planning, when in fact they are simply procrastinating. If you are not alert enough to recognize it, laziness will gradually erode your strength, steal your time, and make you feel content in passivity. One of the most common forms of laziness is endless planning without ever starting. Some people spend entire days drawing detailed charts, writing countless goals, organizing their work with every tool available, but everything stops at the preparation stage. They reassure themselves that they are making progress, while in reality, results remain at zero. In truth, planning is necessary, but if a plan is never transformed into action, it is nothing more than a luxurious form of laziness disguised as thorough preparation. Another form of laziness is being constantly busy but never effective. You may find yourself running around all day, doing dozens of small tasks, replying to emails, scrolling through news, making calls, tweaking minor details. Yet by the end of the day, there is no meaningful progress. This is fake busyness, another mask of laziness. Because instead of facing and focusing on the truly difficult task, you choose to drown in easy, low-challenge activities to feel like you are working. But the truth is, you are only avoiding. Laziness also knows how to disguise itself under the cover of reasonable rest. Resting after a period of hard work is necessary. But when you continually extend that rest, finding every excuse to delay, "I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it when I feel inspired," it is no longer recovery, but procrastination. The danger lies in the fine line between necessary rest and self-indulgence. Those without wisdom slip further into comfort without realizing they are losing discipline. Another cloak laziness often wears is perfectionism. Some say, "I haven't started because I'm waiting for the perfect conditions." But perfection is a trap. The world is full of imperfection, and anyone who waits for everything to be perfect before acting will never begin. Perfectionism is in truth a high-class form of laziness. It allows you to avoid responsibility with seemingly reasonable excuses, while at the core, it is simply fear of failure. Laziness also hides within instant pleasures. A new episode, a few rounds of gaming, endless scrolling on your phone, all give you the illusion that you are rightfully entertaining yourself. But the problem is this: these pleasures often consume hours that you thought would be just a little while. This is the most sophisticated form of laziness in our era because it is legitimized by technology, making it difficult to distinguish between genuine rest and outright neglect of your goals. Laziness can also disguise itself as reasonable excuses. You say, "I'm tired today. I'm not ready yet. I'm waiting for a better opportunity." All of it sounds logical, but in truth it is a stalling tactic to avoid facing what needs to be done. If you look deeper, you will see most of these reasons are born from avoidance of responsibility, not from objective conditions. A wise person asks, is this truly a reason or just an excuse? And that very question exposes laziness under the light. At times, laziness even hides under the mask of self-compassion. You think, I've endured so much, I deserve a little more rest. It sounds reasonable, even noble. But the truth is, when you are too lenient with yourself, that little more quickly becomes a habit, and that habit slowly kills progress. Discipline is not punishment, it is a gift to yourself, ensuring you are not trapped in stagnation. The most dangerous aspect of laziness is that it blinds you to the damage. When you fail to act, you don't feel the loss immediately. No one comes to take money from your wallet, no one strips the roof over your head. But over time, the cost is enormous. Opportunities slip away, sharpness dulls, confidence weakens, and you gradually lose yourself. Laziness today is the invisible thief of tomorrow. To break free from these disguises, you need ruthless honesty with yourself. Observe every time you want to delay and ask, is this necessary rest or laziness in disguise? Look straight at the useless busyness, the hours of unconscious scrolling, the reasonable but meaningless excuses. When the light of truth shines on it, laziness has nowhere left to hide. Once you realize this, you understand why many intelligent people still fail. Not because they lack knowledge, but because they allow laziness, dressed in countless fine clothes, to dictate their actions. Successful people are not different from you in intelligence. They are different because they have the courage to tear away the disguise and act. Laziness is an enemy that never completely disappears. But when you see it, when you recognize it in all its subtle forms, you already hold a great advantage. You can choose to rise instead of being pulled down. And with each of those choices, you build true strength, the strength of someone who knows how to master themselves. No one ever matures from walking paths lined with roses. All real progress is hidden within the shell of difficulty, challenge, and sometimes even pain. When you step into the land of hardship, you are forced to expand your abilities, forced to learn how to master fear, and to discover strength you never thought you had. It is precisely in the places you want to avoid, in the places that push you to your limits, where you are reborn into someone stronger. Difficulty can take many forms: failure at work, conflict in relationships, an unexpected financial setback, or a long journey of persistence with no results in sight. True wisdom lies in pausing and looking at them not as enemies, but as strict teachers. Your instinct wants to avoid them, to seek safety, to find shortcuts. But wisdom reminds you that when you overcome difficulty, you unlock new levels of progress in your life. Think back to a time when you truly progressed. Was it when you were comfortable, relaxed, and everything came easily? Or was it when you were forced to face adversity, when pressure made you grow up faster? The answer is always clear. Muscles only grow stronger when challenged by weight. The mind only sharpens when forced to solve problems. And the soul only deepens when it has tasted enough pain to understand the value of persistence. Difficulty is life's secret training ground. It is like an invisible gym where you don't pay with money, but with effort, tears, sweat, and patience. Each time you choose to face it instead of running away, you place another brick in the foundation of sustainable progress. And the fascinating truth is, the deeper you go into hardship, the more you realize that your limits were nothing but illusions. The problem is that most people want results without facing the difficulty that comes with them. They want strength but fear exhaustion. They want wisdom but fear mistakes. They want success but refuse to accept failure as part of the journey. That is why so many remain average, because they lack the courage to embrace hardship, to walk through the darkness they must face. You need to change the way you view difficulty. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this training me for? When you change the question, you change your mindset. And when you change your mindset, you open a new path forward. Every step of progress in human history, from great inventions to social revolutions, was born because someone dared to step into difficulty where others turned away. Difficulty is also a true mirror of who you are. It reveals who is steadfast and who easily breaks. It separates those who only talk from those who act. You cannot pretend in the face of difficulty. Either you grow or you retreat and let it defeat you. That is why whenever hardship comes, recognize it as the chance to prove to yourself that you are more than you imagined. I want you to remember this. Progress is not a pleasant feeling. It is the result of walking through moments of hardship that most people dare not touch. When you learn to use difficulty instead of avoiding it, you step into another dimension of strength, because true success is not in what you receive, but in who you become through the process. Difficulty also teaches humility. When you think you are skillful, life will send a challenge big enough to remind you that you still have much to learn. When you believe you are invincible, a failure will show you there are still limits to conquer. But if you learn from them, hardship becomes baggage you carry forward. It does not break you, it forges you. If you are in the middle of difficulty right now, do not panic. Do not see it as a pit with no way out. See it as life's test to make sure you are strong enough to step into the next level. Because the reality is this: every time you survive difficulty, you don't just survive, you emerge with new strength. And that strength never leaves. It becomes part of who you are. Imagine if tomorrow you woke up and there were no challenges at all. Everything was easy. Would you progress anymore? You would wither. You would grow weak. It is precisely difficulty that keeps you alive, keeps you moving forward, and keeps you improving. So instead of wishing for a life without hardship, wish for a spirit strong enough to walk through every hardship. Progress always lies within difficulty, and every time you accept to go through it, you are rewriting your own story. You are no longer the one controlled by circumstances. You become the one who uses difficulty to build strength. And when you do this, nothing in life can stop you from moving further, higher, and deeper. Character is not formed overnight, nor is it the result of a single major event. It is the outcome of repeated choices made in everyday life, often so small that you barely notice them. A decision in the present, even if it seems harmless, carries the weight of another brick being laid into the foundation of who you are. And it is precisely this chain of bricks, accumulated over time, that forms the shape of your character, which in turn determines your destiny. Look at how you begin a morning. When the alarm rings, do you choose to get up immediately or hit snooze for another 10 minutes? It may sound trivial, but that choice reflects your attitude toward discipline. One press of the snooze button doesn't make you weak, but the habit of repeatedly postponing plants the seeds of procrastination, even in important decisions. You think you are just trading for a few extra minutes of sleep, but in truth you are allowing yourself to evade responsibility, no matter how small. And each time you do, a piece of your character is etched. Similarly, when faced with a small promise, such as showing up to meet someone on time, do you choose to keep your word or allow yourself to arrive late because everyone does? If you consistently arrive on time, you not only build trust with others, but also train yourself in integrity. Conversely, if you easily make excuses and arrive late, you are gradually shaping a version of yourself that is loose, lacking in personal discipline. The crucial point here is this: character is not formed by grand declarations, but by small, repeated actions. You may say you are disciplined, but if in subtle choices you allow instinct to lead instead of intellect, your words will eventually become hollow. On the other hand, even if you never proclaim anything, but each day you choose the right action, even if it is simply keeping your desk tidy or finishing tasks on time, others will sense the solidity within you. Pay attention to how you respond when given the chance to cheat without anyone knowing. Do you choose the easy way in the dark, or do you choose integrity even when unseen? It is in these silent moments that you define yourself. Morality is not measured by how you act when watched, but by the small decisions made in solitude. One act of dishonesty may bring short-term gain, but a chain of dishonest acts will shatter the foundation of your character, making you someone untrustworthy first and foremost in your own eyes. Each small choice is like training a muscle. When you choose to walk instead of lying on the couch, you are training both your body and your will. When you choose to read a few pages instead of scrolling on social media, you are training your mind to prefer depth over distraction. And when you choose to forgive instead of holding on to resentment, you are expanding your heart and practicing emotional maturity. No decision is neutral. Each one tips the scale in some direction. Look at your current habits. Each day, what do you drink first, water or coffee? Do you eat quickly and carelessly, or do you take a moment to sit down? What words do you choose when irritated, restraint, or outburst? All of these are silently shaping the person you are becoming. And if you want to change your character, you cannot just wish for it in words. You must adjust the very small choices you make daily. The common trap is that people underestimate the impact of small actions. They think, just this once, it won't matter. But just once is the seed being planted. A seed does not sprout immediately, but if you keep planting, you will have an entire field. The real danger is not a single big mistake, but the accumulation of small missteps that over time become deeply ingrained flaws. Conversely, greatness also does not begin with colossal actions, but with small, consistent right choices, repeated until they form identity. Character is essentially a kind of bank account. Every right choice is a deposit, every repeated mistake is a withdrawal. The problem is that you often don't see the results in the short term, because the balance shifts silently. But at some point, when a major trial comes, it is that character account that determines whether you stand firm or collapse. Those who have deposited enough discipline, integrity, and perseverance will have the capital to face hardship. Those who have withdrawn too much through easy choices will fall into crisis when tested. The encouraging truth is that you can change this account at any time. A right choice in the present, no matter how small, is still the beginning of a shift. You don't need to wait for a grand event to start over. You only need to choose the right thing in the smallest moment and repeat it to gradually restore the shape of the character you want to build. If you want to become strong, start by keeping the smallest promises to yourself. If you want to be wise, start by choosing to read a page instead of spending 5 meaningless minutes on your phone. If you want to be trustworthy, start by replying to important messages on time. These small acts are the very bricks of the foundation. Ultimately, remember, character does not come from what you dream of, but from what you choose. And you choose not in grand moments, but in the most ordinary situations. Each time you face a choice, you are not only deciding what to do, you are deciding who you will become. You cannot hide that forever. Time will reveal the accumulation, and life will reflect precisely the character you have built through your daily small choices. So never underestimate moments that seem trivial. Use intellect to guide them instead of letting instinct pull you, because every small decision today is a brushstroke painting the portrait of your character tomorrow. Most people live with a vague promise in their minds: tomorrow I will start. Tomorrow will be the time I exercise, read, save money, write a plan, or finally dare to do what I've long postponed. But tomorrow never arrives, because every time it appears, it changes its name to today. And if today you still delay, you are simply depositing your life into an imaginary bank called the future, where there is no interest, only loss. The illusion of tomorrow is one of the most dangerous traps of the mind. It brings a false sense of safety, as if you have already fulfilled part of your responsibility just by thinking, "I'll do it later." In that moment, your brain releases dopamine, a fleeting sense of satisfaction that makes you feel relieved. But in reality, nothing changes. Your body remains sluggish, your tasks remain unfinished, opportunities continue to pass, and you yourself grow weaker in procrastination. Ask yourself, how many important plans in your life have been imprisoned by the 2 words tomorrow? How many times have you said, "I'll start eating healthy. I'll call my loved ones. I'll learn a new skill," and then a year passes and you remain the same? The harsh truth is that every tomorrow missed becomes a yesterday you will never regain. Why do we so easily fall into this illusion? Because the mind always seeks comfort. The human brain tends to avoid pain and reach for ease. To begin acting means stepping out of the familiar zone, accepting risk, and enduring initial discomfort. Meanwhile, the promise of tomorrow is like a soft pillow that allows you to keep sleeping on the bed of procrastination without having to take responsibility immediately. In reality, tomorrow is instinct's way of deceiving intellect. It makes you believe you have endless opportunities, that time is abundant. But the truth is, it is not. Each day you delay, you lose a piece of energy, a piece of opportunity, and a piece of your ability to achieve your dreams. Those who understand this never bargain with time. They know the only moment they can truly control is today. Here is a frightening truth. If you do not act today, you will not act tomorrow either. Your present habits are the most accurate predictor of your future. The person who says, "I will exercise tomorrow," often repeats that phrase for months until their body weakens and a doctor issues a warning. The person who says, "I'll save money later," usually keeps wasting it on meaningless expenses until they face financial crisis. The one who says, "I'll start my business when I'm ready," often never begins because perfect readiness does not exist. Escaping the illusion of tomorrow requires awareness. You must face the reality. Every time you postpone, you are not delaying a task, you are delaying your life. A valuable life is not built on intentions, but on actions. Intentions don't pay bills, don't build careers, don't create health, don't preserve love. Only action taken today can do that. How do you break this illusion? First, change the language in your mind. Don't say, tomorrow I will do it. Say, right now I begin with a small step. A small step is not insignificant. It is the lever that opens the door of procrastination. Writing one page, walking for 10 minutes, saving a small amount of money, these are real, while the promise of tomorrow is nothing but a mirage. Second, create a rule of non-negotiation with yourself. Set one action that must be completed today, regardless of how you feel. When you act based on principle rather than mood, you step outside the control of instinct, and only then do you truly live by intellect. Third, remember that time does not wait for you. You may think you are only 30, 40, that there is still plenty of opportunity ahead. But in reality, each passing day is one day older, one day weaker, one day fewer in opportunities. Do not let this truth strike as a shock when it is too late. Wise people do not live by the belief that there will be time. They live by the conviction that I will use this very minute. Breaking free from the illusion of tomorrow is not only about changing habits, but about changing how you see life. It is the acknowledgement that time is the most precious asset, and every moment wasted is a part of yourself that never returns. The sooner you understand this, the sooner you reclaim mastery of your life. So do not let tomorrow become your prison. When your mind whispers, leave it for tomorrow, stop and resist. Number I start today. No matter how small the step, it is still a victory. And many small victories will add up to a great life. If you want change, if you want breakthrough, if you want to become a stronger version of yourself, remind yourself, everything great begins today, not in some vague tomorrow. Tomorrow does not exist. Only today is real, and today is the only chance you have to rewrite your destiny. There is a truth you must engrave in your mind. If you wait until you feel completely ready to begin, you will never begin. The feeling of readiness is not the starting point. It only appears after you have taken steps, after you have collided with reality, after you have tasted and proven to yourself that you can. Fear always wears the coat of reason. It makes you believe, I don't have enough experience. I need more time to prepare. I need better conditions. These thoughts may sound logical, but in reality, they are instinct's way of delaying action so you don't have to face risk. This is the very moment intellect must speak. Intellect reminds you that no amount of preparation will ever be complete without real experience. Think back to the turning points of your life. How many times were you truly ready? Your first day at school, were you ready? The first time you stood before a crowd, were you confident? The first time you started a new job, did you know for sure you would do well? To number, but you did it. And it was the doing that made you grow, not the endless preparation. Acting before you are ready does not mean blind recklessness. It is courageous intention, a decision based on vision, on true desire, and on faith that you can learn along the way. Intellect understands that no one masters everything from the start, but only those who dare to begin can go far. What you need to change is your relationship with imperfection. Instead of seeing it as a reason to stop, see it as an invitation to explore. You don't know everything, and that is the opportunity to learn. You are not certain, and that is the reason to experiment. You are not yet skilled, and that is the beginning of training. When you reverse this perspective, action no longer feels like a burden, but becomes the path that unlocks potential. There will be moments in life when your heart beats faster, your hands grow cold, and the voice in your head says, don't do it. Wait a little longer. That is exactly when you must step forward. Just one small step, but it is your declaration to yourself that you control your life with intellect, not with fear. The first step is always the hardest, but it is the key to freedom. Imagine someone wanting to learn to swim. He stands on the shore, reads every book, watches every video, listens to every piece of advice. But if he never gets in the water, he will forever know only theory. Readiness does not come before the jump. It comes after his body hits the water, struggles, and gradually finds its rhythm. Life is the same. You must jump in to discover you can swim. The greatest obstacle is not lack of knowledge or resources, but the expectation that you must feel safe before acting. But true safety is only created after you've gained experience, after you've gone through failures and realized you still stand. The longer you delay, the thicker the wall you build between yourself and what you desire. Intellect shows you another path. Start with the smallest thing, but start now. Write a paragraph instead of waiting for enough inspiration to write a book. Make one phone call instead of waiting until you have perfect communication skills. Save a small amount instead of waiting until you earn more to start managing money. These small actions not only create results, but more importantly, they create momentum, breaking the endless cycle of waiting. Every action you take before you are ready is like a brick you lay to build the bridge of progress. One day, looking back, you will realize that the initial courage, though shaky, awkward, was the solid foundation you now stand on. Remember, successful people are not different from you because they had more favorable conditions, but because they acted sooner. They stepped forward while their minds were still trembling. They began when no one believed. They experimented while things were still unclear. And while the rest of the world was waiting to feel ready, they were already halfway there. You can do the same. Do not let instinct pull you back into the comfort zone. Let intellect guide you into the unknown. Each time you act before you are ready, you are rewriting the map of your life, a map where you are no longer the one waiting, but the one leading the way. And when you look back, you will see, readiness was never the condition to begin. It is the reward given to those who dared to take the first step. There are chains that no one can see, no one can hear, yet they tighten more forcefully than any chain of iron and steel. Negative thoughts. They make no sound as they lock your life, but they silently drain your energy, rob your confidence, blur your vision, and suffocate your aspirations. The most frightening enemy is not out there, but the small voice in your head whispering, "You're not good enough. You will fail. Others are luckier than you." When a negative thought appears, it is like a seed falling onto the fertile soil of the mind. If you do not recognize it and pull it out immediately, it will take root, sprout, and grow into a thicket, blocking out the light of faith and willpower. Think back. How many opportunities in your life have been buried just because you told yourself, "I can't do it"? How many dreams have you quietly set aside simply because of the invisible fear in your head? The danger lies in the human brain's natural tendency to focus on the negative. This is an ancient survival mechanism when our ancestors had to remain alert to threats in order to survive. But in the modern world, that vigilance often no longer helps you. It becomes a burden. Instead of preparing to face wild animals or physical dangers, you imprison yourself in pessimistic scenarios. What if I fail? What if people laugh at me? What if I'm not capable enough? And you become paralyzed before even taking the first step. The chains of negative thinking are different from real failure. Failure is a concrete result. It teaches you a lesson and can be overcome. But negative thoughts imprison you even when nothing has happened. They are like a prison inside your mind, where you lock the door and throw away the key, while outside the doors of success remain wide open. To break those chains, the first step is to recognize them. Each time your mind says, "I'm not good enough," pause and ask, "Who says so? Based on what evidence?" Most negative thoughts have no foundation. They are merely repeated habits. Once you shine the light of reason on them, you will see how weak, vague, and baseless they truly are. Next, replace them with counter thoughts. If your brain says, "You will fail," ask, "But what if I succeed? What challenges have I already overcome before?" These probing questions help you build a new armor against the waves of negativity. Remember, the mind is like a room. If you leave it empty, dust will settle. If you don't actively let in the light, darkness will take over. That is why you must cultivate positive thinking by reading inspirational books, listening to uplifting stories, and most importantly, engaging in positive self-talk. One daily affirmation is like a key that unlocks the chains. When you tell yourself, "I am worthy, I can. I will move forward," you are forging a will strong enough to break any invisible limitation. Do not confuse positivity with delusion. Positive thinking does not mean denying hardship or hiding failure. On the contrary, it is the attitude of looking directly at challenges while still believing you have the strength to keep going. Negative people stop at the sight of a mountain. Positive people see the path, take each step upward, and know that even in fatigue, they can reach the summit. Each day, observe the language you use. The words you repeat are the bricks that build the wall in your mind. If you constantly say, "It's too hard, I can't," you are chaining yourself. But if you change it to, "It's hard, but I will try, I will learn, I will improve," you are handing yourself a door. Language is the tool to reprogram the mind, and every word you choose is another link removed from the invisible chain. Another way to escape negativity is through action. Nothing defeats fear faster than small steps forward. Each time a negative thought whispers, "You will fail," prove it wrong with action, even if it's just one small step. Write down an idea, send an email, make a call, practice a skill. Action is the clearest evidence that negative thinking does not control you. You must also choose your environment. Look at the people around you. Do they radiate positive energy, or do they pull you down with complaints and doubt? Environment is like air. You breathe it every day, and it shapes your mental health. If you want to break free from the chains of negativity, stay close to those who believe, who see your potential, and who encourage you to step out of your comfort zone. Finally, train persistence. Negative thoughts do not vanish overnight. They may return, whispering in moments of weakness, but each time you recognize and reject them, you weaken them. Day by day, month by month, you build a new habit, the habit of thinking positively, proactively, and with strength. One day you will realize that the invisible chains have fallen away without you noticing, and you walk lighter, freer, and stronger. Negative thinking can imprison you, but only if you allow it. The key has always been in your hands. It is intellect, self-awareness, and mental discipline. When you use intellect to shine the light, those invisible chains lose all power, and for the first time you will feel truly free to live the life you deserve. In life, most of what controls you is not the external world, but the endless stream of thoughts within. Each thought is like a seed planted in the soil of your mind, which then grows into emotions, behaviors, and outcomes. The problem is, not every seed is worth nurturing. Some thoughts make you grow, but others hold you back, weaken you, and drag you into old cycles. If you are not conscious, you will let negative seeds take root deeply and become unconscious patterns. Mastering your mindset does not mean forcing yourself to think positively 24/7. That is impossible and artificial. Mastery means recognizing when a thought does not serve your progress, and instead of fighting or suppressing it, you choose to replace it with another thought, stronger, clearer, and more useful. That is the power of replacement. Observe the moment you tell yourself, "I'm not good enough to do this." If you leave it unchecked, that thought will trigger feelings of helplessness, which lead to avoidance. But if you pause and ask, "Is there another way to think about this?" you will see a way out. You can replace "I'm not good enough" with "I'm learning to become better." Just one simple replacement, yet the energy is entirely different, shifting from helplessness to growth. Replacing thoughts is not about deceiving yourself. It is about choosing a perspective that is more realistic and more helpful. People often get stuck in extreme thinking, either "I succeed perfectly" or "I'm a complete failure." In reality, there is a wide spectrum in between. You may not be a genius instantly, but you are far from worthless. The replacement here is, "I haven't reached the result I want yet, but I can adjust and try again." Many people fall into the trap of repetitive thinking known as a cognitive loop. The more negatively you think, the more your brain strengthens the neural pathway for negativity. The only solution is not to force yourself to stop thinking you can't, but to plant a different direction of thought. It's like changing the television channel. You can't make the old channel disappear, but you can choose to tune into another one that serves you better. At work, when facing pressure, instead of thinking, "I'm definitely going to fail," try replacing it with, "This is a chance to test myself and learn." In relationships, instead of thinking, "People never understand me," replace it with, "Maybe I need to communicate more clearly." In health, instead of thinking, "I'll never quit this bad habit," replace it with, "Each day I can get closer to controlling it." The key lies in this. You cannot erase old thoughts instantly, but you can weaken them by consistently nurturing the replacements. Just like muscles, the neural pathways you use most become stronger. So what you need is not to fight negative instincts, but to continuously create smarter alternatives and patiently repeat them. Many people wonder, "But what if I don't believe the new thought yet?" This is important. Belief does not come instantly. At first, the replacement is just a fragile seed. You may not fully believe it, but you still plant it. And as you begin to act in alignment with the new thought, real experiences will strengthen that belief. For example, when you replace "I'm not good enough" with "I'm learning to get better," and you actually invest in learning, months later you will have evidence to reinforce that belief. The power of replacement also lies in transforming emotional energy. Anger can be replaced with curiosity. What made them act this way? Anxiety can be replaced with preparation. What can I do right now to take control? Insecurity can be replaced with gratitude. What do I already have that is valuable? Each replacement is a training exercise for your brain to see the world through a new lens. Remember, instinct will always pull you back toward familiar thinking, but intellect allows you to create new choices. The difference between ordinary people and those who master life does not lie in who has fewer negative thoughts, but in who can replace them more quickly and effectively. From now on, whenever you notice a thought that makes you shrink back, pause and ask yourself, what can I replace this with to move forward? With enough practice, you will realize you are no longer a victim of your thoughts, but the architect who designs them. From there, every result in your life begins to change. You do not need to control every thought. You only need to master one thing, the power of replacement. And this very power will take you from the cycle of instinct to the orbit of wisdom, where you are free to design life the way you choose. No great change ever comes from fleeting inspiration. What forces your brain and body to accept a new standard is forced repetition. The word forced may sound harsh, but its essence is that you no longer give your brain the right to choose the old path. You create a framework of repeated actions over and over again until the brain is compelled to adjust, compelled to rewire its neural pathways to adapt to the new rhythm. Imagine this. You do push-ups every day. On the first day, your brain and body protest violently, sending signals of fatigue and resistance. On the fifth day, the discomfort is still there, but slightly reduced. By the 30th day, your body begins to see it as a normal part of life. Forced repetition turns the difficult into the familiar, and the familiar into a new instinct. You no longer wrestle with, should I do it, because it has already become, I cannot not do it. Your brain is not a solid, unchanging rock. It is like soft clay that can be reshaped through pressure and time. Each time you repeat an action, you carve a new groove into its neural structure. An action done once may be fleeting, but an action repeated 10, 20, 30 times becomes a well-trodden path, and the brain will always choose the path that requires the least energy. Forced repetition is the strategy that paves that path. The problem is that most people quit during the hardest phase, the stage when the forcing still feels uncomfortable and results haven't yet shown up. They stop before the body has time to adapt, before the brain has time to record the new pattern, and so they return to the starting line, endlessly dragged back by the old cycle. You need to understand that the resistance inside is not a sign to stop it, is the precise signal that your brain is being forced to change. If you persist past that threshold, you step into a new reality, a place where the new habit has been installed. This applies not only to the body, but also to emotions and mindset. Someone prone to anger can train themselves to pause by repeating the action of waiting 3 seconds before reacting. At first, the brain resists. Instincts push you to explode. But if you force yourself to pause 3 seconds, then 5, then 10, in many situations, the nervous system is compelled to adapt to the new rhythm. The result is that you are no longer controlled by emotions. You become the one in control of them. You see, true freedom does not come from doing whatever you feel like. Freedom comes from training your brain to obey the commands you set, and the only road to that training is forced repetition. A pianist may spend thousands of hours playing the same passage over and over. A boxer may throw the same punch tens of thousands of times. Why don't they get bored? Because they understand one principle. It is monotony that creates mastery. Forcing is not about punishing yourself, but about cutting off every retreat. You put your brain in front of one option, only adapt or collapse. When the choices are removed, the brain has no choice but to forge a new path. That is how discipline reprograms you. But remember, forced repetition is not blind repetition. It must be tied to a clear goal. You cannot just force yourself into meaningless action. Repetition only has power when it aligns with what you want to become. If you want to be calm, you must force yourself to repeat calm behaviors. If you want to be wise, you must force yourself to repeat habits of learning, reading, reflecting. The adaptability of the brain is a survival advantage. Primitive humans had to adapt to weather, danger, and the environment. Today, you can use that very mechanism to serve your personal growth. Instead of letting the external world force you to adapt, you consciously create an environment of internal pressure to reprogram yourself. Imagine this. If over the next 6 months, you force yourself to repeat just one habit, waking up early, reading, exercising, meditating, or anything else, you will become an entirely different person. Your brain will no longer be the brain of the old you. Every neural connection will have been rewired, every reflex reshaped by the commands you enforced. You will not just act differently, you will actually become different. At the end of the day, greatness is not innate. It is forced out through relentless repetition, to the point where there is no way back. Successful people do not wait for inspiration to act. They force themselves to act until inspiration is compelled to follow. Remember this, inspiration always comes after, while discipline and forced repetition come first. You do not need to change the entire world today. You only need to choose one action, repeat it, force yourself to do it until it becomes second nature. Once you master one, you can master two, then three. Step by step, you are redrawing the map of your brain. And by then you will realize you are no longer the one waiting for change, you are the one creating it. People often expect a grand result from a single effort, but the truth is entirely different. Life does not operate on a one big push that changes everything. What shapes you, proves you, and protects you is accumulated evidence, the small fragments you create through each repetition. It is not one act of discipline, but hundreds. Not one moment of courage, but a series of times you dared to move forward while fear was still alive. Every day, the actions you sustain become evidence, etched into your subconscious and into reality, that you are on the right path. Accumulated evidence does not need to be loud, but it has a power of persuasion far greater than words. Others may doubt you, but they cannot deny the string of results you consistently create. You can tell them you've changed, but no one will believe until those pieces of evidence become etched marks in your life. A healthy body from consistent training, a sharp mind from daily reading, a solid career from steadily doing your work well. Repetition is your signature on the contract with yourself. Imagine an athlete. He does not become a champion from one intense training session, but from thousands of days of practice, little by little. Every drop of sweat falling to the floor is a small piece of evidence, accumulating into an undeniable resume. He deserves victory. Your life works the same way. Each time you choose reading over scrolling, writing over procrastination, action over complaining, it all gets recorded. It is no longer a single act, but a commitment reinforced through repetition. The miracle lies here. Accumulated evidence not only convinces others, but also rebuilds belief within yourself. The brain remembers very well. It remembers the times you broke promises to yourself, but it also never forgets each time you followed through. Every time you maintain discipline, the nervous system records, "I can trust myself." Conversely, every time you give up, you reinforce the belief that you are weak. Repetition is objective evidence, unbiased. It reflects who you are not according to your wishes, but according to truth. We often overestimate the power of inspiration and underestimate the power of evidence. Inspiration can ignite a special day, but only accumulated evidence guarantees an entire life. You may feel motivated after a speech, but what remains after a month, a year? Only what you have actually done, consistently maintained, and proven through repetition. That is why successful people always say, "You don't need to do a lot, only do it again and again." A simple repetition, writing a few pages a day, exercising for 30 minutes, learning one small skill may seem insignificant, but multiplied by hundreds, thousands of times, it creates immense power. Just as a tiny drop of water is nothing, but falling continuously on one spot, it carves into stone. The power of repetition is the ability to turn the ordinary into the extraordinary, the small act into undeniable proof of your greatness. What you must remember is this: accumulated evidence never disappears. It is imprinted into how you think, how you live, and how others perceive you. If you consistently take positive action, that evidence becomes the foundation of trust. But if you repeatedly indulge in procrastination and complacency, that evidence also piles up, proving you cannot be relied on. Every day, you are building a record of evidence, either to defend you or to condemn you. Ask yourself, what kind of evidence am I accumulating? If today you skip a workout, the brain records it. If you sit down and finish your task, it records that too. Whichever choice is repeated long enough will define who you are in your own eyes. You may deceive others in the short term, but you cannot deceive yourself about what you do repeatedly each day. This gives you priceless freedom. You don't need to prove yourself with words or chase recognition. You only need to act and let accumulated evidence speak. When others question you, it is your chain of results that answers. When you doubt yourself, it is your history of action that reminds you, look how far you've come. True strength does not lie in declarations, but in the evidence you've built. Accumulated evidence also teaches patience. No single day brings a miraculous leap, but looking back after a year, you see undeniable transformation. That is the difference between those who live by impulse and those who live by wisdom. One demands results immediately, the other trusts the power of accumulation. The first gives up easily, the second quietly proves themselves day by day. Remember, you don't need to find a way to prove your worth in a fleeting moment. Let accumulated evidence do that for you. Each time you repeat a right action, you add another stamp of affirmation onto yourself. That is something no one can take away because it does not come from recognition, but from your own lived experience. And one day, when others look at you, they will not be able to deny it. You are the embodiment of consistency. Not because you said too much, but because the chain of accumulated evidence has carved itself deeply into reality. The language you use with yourself matters more than any words spoken by others. No one can control how you converse with yourself but you. And what determines your strength or weakness does not lie in external circumstances, but in the words you allow to echo within your mind. A weak voice carries the tone of permission. I'll try. If it works, that's good. If not, then never mind. An iron voice is a command. I must do it, and I will see it through no matter what. The distance between these two voices is the distance between someone who is swept along by life and someone who shapes destiny. Each morning when you wake up, if the first language you use is excuses, your brain immediately registers that you are granting yourself permission to delay. A sentence like, I'm too tired, I'll do it tomorrow, is not just words, it is a biological signal, an order to your nervous system to release the state of resignation. In contrast, when you use commands like, get up, begin, right now, the body receives the message of action. You are no longer led by feelings, but directed by intellect. Many people fail not because of a lack of knowledge, but because they allow the weak voice in their heads to take control. You may know exactly what needs to be done, but if inside you continually hear, I'm not sure, maybe I'm not ready, I can do it later, then knowledge becomes useless. The reality you live in is always the direct result of your inner language. If you tell yourself, this is too hard, it immediately becomes harder. If you tell yourself, I can do this, your body and willpower will adjust to act in that direction. It's important to note that the brain does not distinguish between true words and false words. It only registers repeated signals. If you repeatedly sow weak language, the nervous system engraves you as someone without strength. But if you train yourself to use clear commands, a new programming is formed. This is not empty self-suggestion, but the mechanism of conditioning the mind. Repeat it enough, and you will live it. Think back to the moments when you truly broke through. Was it when you said, I'll try my best? Or when you told yourself, there is no retreat, move forward? The strength in that moment did not come from circumstances, but from your inner language shifting from frail to sharp. A person only truly matures when they learn to change the tone inside their own mind. To shift from weak to iron, you need 3 steps. First, recognize the weak voice. Whenever you hear yourself using phrases like maybe, later, I'll try, stop, and mark it as a warning signal. Second, replace it with a specific command. Instead of, I'll try to exercise, say go outside and run for 20 minutes right now. The more specific the language, the faster the action. Third, repeat until it becomes reflex. You do not need motivation if your inner language is already programmed into iron commands. Those with a weak inner voice are often controlled by external circumstances. Just one criticism, and they tell themselves, I'm not good enough. One small failure, and they immediately say, maybe this isn't meant for me. But those who train an iron voice respond differently. They command themselves, get up, continue, it's not over yet. That very voice keeps them from collapsing under storms. That's why the difference between a quitter and the unbreakable lies only in how they talk to themselves. Try a simple experiment. When you feel lazy, instead of sighing, say aloud, get up, do it. you'll see your body respond. When you give a decisive order, the mind summons energy. Conversely, if you tell yourself, I'm tired, maybe tomorrow, your entire physiology immediately cools down, your energy drops. Language does not just describe state, it creates state. The strength of a general lies not in his sword, but in the commands that move an entire army into action. You are the general of your own mind. If you issue commands in a trembling voice, the soldiers within your habits, emotions, behaviors will scatter. If you issue commands in an iron voice, every system within you moves in unison. The key is consistency. An iron command spoken today but replaced by weak language tomorrow will leave the mind in chaos. Picture this. Every sentence you speak to yourself is a brick in a wall. If the first brick is firm and the second firm, gradually you build a strong fortress. But if you alternate between solid bricks and brittle ones, the wall will soon collapse. Therefore, discipline in inner language is something you must guard as a non-negotiable principle. Ask yourself, how much of your day is spent speaking in a weak voice, and how much with iron commands? If the latter is below 50%, don't be surprised when your life is full of procrastination, confusion, and lack of progress. Only when you tip the balance will things truly change. Here is the crux. You don't need others to push you. You don't need an external force to drive you forward. What you need is to reconstruct your inner language. Start by writing down 5 commands you will use daily, for example. Get up now. Begin. Finish before resting. No complaints, only action. Continue until done. Repeat them until your brain defaults to this as its natural response. You cannot control every circumstance, but you can always control the voice in your head. And that voice will be the conductor shaping your entire life. If you want to live as a warrior, command like a warrior. If you want to live with pride, silence the weak voice and replace it with iron commands. For in the end, it is your inner language that decides whether you merely exist in the shadows or rise in the light of strength and freedom. People often seek comfort as the ultimate destination, yet it is that very comfort that becomes the silent enemy, draining motivation, endurance, and ambition. You know this feeling well. Work is unfinished, yet the soft chair and the phone in your hand pull you away from what must be done. The goals you set seem distant, so you choose procrastination to feel a little better. The problem is that comfort acts like an anesthetic. It soothes you temporarily while quietly eroding your inner strength. And without a counterforce, you slowly sink into a still, stagnant pool, the comfort zone. Pressure is the tool that defeats that comfort. It is not the enemy, but the necessary test that separates those who dare to move forward from those who remain standing still. Pressure forces your brain, body, and will to operate at a level higher than usual. Just like when you lift weights, the muscles must tear before they rebuild stronger. In the same way, when you face pressure, your mind and character are forged into a more resilient version of yourself. If you notice, every leap forward in life stems from pressure. The pressure of an exam that drives a student to study through the night, the pressure of finances that sparks a new business idea, the pressure of pride that pushes an athlete to make a comeback in the final seconds. No one grows in comfort, only in the clash of pressure are you forced to rise. What matters is not avoiding pressure, but learning to use it as leverage. Many people make the mistake of seeing pressure as a burden, when in reality it is the switch that unlocks hidden energy. The question you must ask yourself is not, how do I avoid this pressure? But, how do I turn it into the force that drives me past my limits? Remember, pressure is only dangerous when you face it with fear. In that state, you either run or collapse. But if you approach it with wisdom, you will know how to adjust. Breaking down goals so they don't overwhelm you, building systems of discipline so you don't fall into chaos, and most importantly, holding the mindset that pressure is a signal of progress, not a trap of failure. I want you to look back at the milestones in your life. When were the moments you felt truly proud of yourself? Was it when you were forced to confront crushing challenges, when the clock was ticking, when the only choice was to rise, and in those very moments you proved you were capable of more than you ever thought? That is the value of pressure. It opens doors that comfort will never let you see. The wise do not run from pressure. They create it for themselves. They set their own deadlines, raise their own standards, and put themselves in situations where they must burn the boats so there is no turning back. They understand that if comfort is in charge, life falls into the spiral of stagnation. But if pressure leads the way, each step forward becomes a powerful leap. Pressure does not only shape you in action, it builds you in thought. It teaches you how to prioritize, how to focus on what is essential, and most importantly, how to remain calm when everything around you is in turmoil. Others may complain, blame, or hide, but you, if you embrace pressure, will stand out for your composure and clarity amid the storm. Comfort is sweet, but it only feeds the lazy self. Pressure is bitter, but it grows the mature character. Do not fear the struggle. Fear the day you no longer have the chance to be tested. For it is the absence of pressure that signals a life that has stopped growing. So, when you feel suffocated by work, responsibilities, or heavy goals, change your perspective. It is not a burden, but a training ground shaping you. Each encounter with pressure is another weight lifted for the mind, and each time you overcome, you shatter another layer of limitation to step into a new dimension of strength. Pressure does not come to kill you. It comes to give you a reason to live stronger. As long as you dare to choose it over comfort, you will set your